Welcome to another episode of the Recruiting Masters, brought to you by the CFC Insider. I'm here with Jim, who's decorating
I'm a CFC 100. See me? His personalized cup.
Gord, Randall, and
I'm
myself,
just trying to be
Clint
a
Uttley.
professional in the middle here. So,
Okay, today we're going to talk about playoffs. And as Jim Mora famously once said, playoffs? Talk about playoffs? Anyways, so here we go. We're going to talk about some playoffs. There are some provincial championships that were won over the course of the weekend. So we'll start all the way out east. Citadel, Phoenix, won their 10th provincial title, their 9th provincial title in the last 10 years. That is their 5th in a row. They have a really good ball club. There's a couple of players we'll talk about later on in the script as we make our way through the show. But congratulations to the Phoenix from Halifax. The second provincial champion that won this weekend was College Jean-Eudes, not Jean-Eudes. They're from Montreal. They played against the Blizzard in the Bull d'Or. And
where are they from?
They are from the outskirts of Montreal. Oh, the Blizzard are from Quebec City.
Yeah, okay. What's
Yes.
the school called?
It's
It's not Saint Jean-Eudes, is it?
It's Seminar Saint Francois,
There you go. Okay, cool.
I think. Okay. Anyway, so the College Jean-Eudes actually took down two of the perennial powers in juvenile football in Quebec to actually win their provincial title. So congrats to them. For those of you who don't know, it's probably one of the more competitive leagues. I've said that on and off throughout the last few weeks. So congrats to Jean-Eudes. However, what we are going to talk about after mentioning those is there was 4 huge upsets in the weekend in high school football through Ontario, BC, and obviously in Quebec, which we just mentioned. The first one we're going to talk about is College Jean-Eudes from
They were the outskirts of Montreal.
Montreal.
Nice.
Took down, they were ranked number 14 at that point in time. They took down the number 5 Blizzard. So Seminar Saint Francois, which is also in Quebec City, which is one of the perennial powers in juvenile football. We're just going to talk about a couple of the players who actually played in the game along with that. It was a game that went back and forth. It was actually won in overtime, 32-38. Jeremy Lavallee, who is a running back for CFC50, College Jean-Eudes, had 17 carries for 172 and 1 touchdown. And on the other side of the ball, for the CFC50 for Seminar Saint Francois, is Iraji Muganda. I believe he must be related to Kalinga, who had 26 carries and was named the player of the game for 26 carries for 187 and 2 touchdowns. When you have 2 running backs who both go over the 170 mark, that tells you pretty much how the game would have played out in freezing cold Quebec.
Yeah, it was
November.
terrible weather that weekend.
With very good offensive line play is how that game played out. And watching Lavallee's film, like the guy had some room. Very, very upfield runner. Love the power behind his game. He also got involved as a receiver too, though. So there was a varied skill set on display there. And man, the crowd for that game looked really nice. Looked like a really good turnout. In fact, bigger than the crowd in London, Ontario this past weekend.
Well, people don't understand how big like CJEP and the minor levels are in Quebec and how important they are to kind of even small town life there. Even in Quebec City, it's small town life in a lot of ways.
I was saying to you earlier today, like I watched these clips from the juvie ranks and from CEGEP, and it makes me wish I grew up in Quebec.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a lot of fun.
Yep.
And obviously really good quality ball, as we've talked about pretty much ad nauseum on this program. But
Yes.
the thing that impressed me for College Jean-Eudes, again, watching some of the highlights from this game, like they were full value for the win. They didn't look like an underdog. They won in a traditional fashion. They were able to move the ball up front. It wasn't one of those things where they relied on some trick plays or explosion plays or anything like that. They were genuinely, probably the better team in this one, and it was a good battle. But for a team that again could be considered a bit of an underdog here,
totally.
They were full value for the win.
Yep, they did a great job. And the fact that they took down Seminar Saint Francois, who was 5, and the week before they took down Jean-Eudes,
the other Jean-Eudes,
who was like number 3. So they beat two top 5 teams in the last 2 weeks. So full credit to them. The next game we're going to talk about 3 other games, 3 huge high school playoff games happened here in BC. We're not going to get too far into it. NWSS, so New West Secondary School, took down the number 1 ranked team in the province, which I'm not going to talk about. However, they did rush for 500 yards, and their starting tailback, who I will talk about in a sec, had 24 carries for 299 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he had a 36-yarder called back, which would have been a 6th touchdown. But I'm not involved in that game personally.
Well, we're not going to talk about the U.S. defense because this schmuck coordinates that defense. But the one stat, the telling stat from that game, U.S. passed for 19 yards in that game. That is a dominant performance on the ground. They didn't even have to go to the air. It is very, very rare. And I would say in most other parts of the country, you just couldn't do that in the Canadian game. But be mindful out here that it's American high school rules. And so they were able to just run the ball all evening. And number 7, Lord Sweden, was not able to come up with an answer for them on defense. But we did see a couple explosive plays. Kojo Odum, I mean, every time I watch that kid play,
he's awesome.
I am blown away by how physically developed he is. That kid is physically mature, and he is a fantastic athlete. He's going to be a really good one at the next level if he slips through the Division I cracks.
Yep, I really liked him. And just to mention the name, Brox Comia he's an athlete. He's ranked on the 2019. He's a CFC 100. He's on the list for 2019. We've put him in as an athlete. He is the new West running back. His actual stats were 29 carries for 299 and 5 touchdowns. So, I mean, obviously both career highs for him, and that kind of propels us into the provincial semis at this point. 2 other players that I have to mention who had absolutely outstanding playoff performances, and I'm going to circle us back to the Nova Scotia champion, Citadel. Their quarterback, Alan Young, had 220 yards passing and 4 total touchdowns. To go along with Ethan Steenbeek, I believe that's correct, who also plays for Citadel. He had 140 yards rushing and 1 touchdown. And the score, I'm not going to dive into the score, but the score was a little lopsided, so congratulations to them. Once again, if more of the Nova Scotia coaches, or even the New Brunswick coaches for that matter, would push us stats and push us prospects, we would make an even bigger effort to try and push their names out there for them, unless you're trying to hide them for your alma maters somewhere in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick. Well, but I'm not saying that.
Well, a quality quarterback out of Nova Scotia is exactly what the AUS needs right now. Over on the Crown Countdown U show, we were talking about the UTech Bowl, the 63-0 loss, the trend that the AUS can't keep up in the national arms race. That's the type of guy that can turn around a program.
There's winners too. Like if you actually go to Citadel, and it has been that way for decades, to be totally honest with you, they turn out really good football players, but they turn out really good people too. Like the kids they're grounded and they have solid work ethic, and they know what the sense of winning and program is. They honestly do. So full credit to them.
That's also one of the programs out there that does tend to send kids out of the Maritime provinces too. The OUA schools are in there. So there's some legit talent coming out of that Citadel program all the time. You were talking about coaches pushing you highlights. What's the best way to do that? Reach out to you directly on social media? Yep.
You can reach out to CFC. You can reach out to the various social media accounts tied to CFC. You can reach out to me. I don't care. And immediately you're going to get a profile request. So they're going to want your information so they can push out your profile, which will include your height, your weight, your video, all your social media, whatever, and basically push it out. And that's at no charge whatsoever. You just got to send your information in. And then if you want to send it out even further, you can send it to me, or you can do it through Twitter. Get a Twitter account, get a name that's totally similar to yours, and we can push it out. Because as soon as you tweet it to us, we're just going to retweet it. And we have so many followers on the various CFC accounts that will push it out. And a lot of different people will see it.
Well, and the other thing I think that was being pushed this week too is you can upload your highlight films directly to the website.
Yes, you can.
As well. So lots of ways you can market yourself with CFC's assistance when that comes around as well, not just for the coaches, but for the players as well.
Yep. And like I said, those things, the social media things and the pushing of information, that is completely free. So make sure you take advantage of that tool. Okay.
The other thing I'll say from a coach's perspective, there's no harm that can come out of reaching out to someone with CFC or out to the universities directly and saying, hey, I got a couple kids I think are pretty good. I think certainly kids that want to play at the next level. What do you think about them? Let me know. Here's their stuff. And the worst thing they can do is ignore you. And that's pretty much it. So worth putting some time into as coaches, especially most of you coaches, since your seasons are now winding down or done already. That should be now your big point of emphasis is starting to find homes for your kids, and not just this year's kids, next year's kids, some of your kids who are still sophomores, all that kind of stuff. Start getting the wheels rolling.
And just to touch on it, there was one of the schools in northern Alberta, we'll say in Sherwood Park, actually reached out to another school somewhere in the middle of Alberta, and all of those young men sent in their highlight tapes this week. And yes, Medicine Hat High School, we watched all your tape this week just because you sent it in.
I think they also went on a following spree, I might add, because I think
Yes.
I picked up a bunch of kids from Medicine Hat, which, by the way, I got family in Medicine Hat, so hi, Medicine Hat.
Hi, Medicine
Anyway.
Hat. Well, we found them, we looked at them. Are all of them going to become 100s? No, they're not. Is there one that is a 100 or is going to become 100? Yes. And we're going to talk about him a little bit later on the show. But Medicine Hat, we saw you, okay? So it's a good job getting all your film in. And to the coaches who made up the film and helped them send in the film, kudos to you as well. So, okay, so that's our provincial champions. Those were our big games of the week. I actually got two more. There was two other huge games. One happened in Ontario, down in Windsor Way, we'll call it. Holy Names, which was ranked 13th in the country and has one of the top prospects in the country, defeated number 4 Herman, who is one of the traditional powers in that part of the province. And I can only imagine that this game would have been a very heated game as Herman defeated Holy Names earlier on in the season. But I didn't get a chance to see too much of the film. I did see the final outcome, and it was a tight defensive-minded football game. But good to see that someone other than Herman is going to go into the OFSA Bowls.
Yeah, Holy Names has been strong for years and has had some trouble getting over that hump. Herman, London area, is it not?
They're pushing towards Windsor.
Windsor, Essex.
Yes, Windsor, Essex.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, but it's good to see a high level of ball in that Windsor area. University of Windsor still trying to build back up right now. That's something that they got to continue to tap into because I know they've been bringing in some more local recruits. Although the elite guys from the top end schools in Windsor still seem to be slipping out of their grasp. So something that that university can really keep pushing on.
You mentioned the top potential recruit out of Holy Names. Who is he?
Theo Johnson has 17 NCAA offers at this point, and I think he just had his official visit to Penn State.
Wow.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. That's not even talking about like Mike Herzog, running back. There's about 4 other ones off that Holy Names team, and we're starting to get track some of the kids on their JV team too.
Didn't Dominic Johnson come out of Holy Names and go to Buffalo because he did get some time in the rotation this week in his MAC game against?
Pretty sure
against Ohio.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'd have to check that one though. I totally would. But Theo, the quarterback, Jake. And then there's Devin Verisuk. Like there's about 5 or 6 from Holy Names, and that's without their coach sending their stuff in. But anyways, Herman, one of the perennial powers, so they dropped down. So those are one of the 4 top 10s that went down this weekend. The last game will be no surprise to anybody who follows high school football in Western Canada. St. Francis of Calgary played the Notre Dame Pride of Calgary. And they decide what happens in that part of the province every year. We pretty much agree on that.
Yeah.
And the one who wins that in the past would usually go up to Edmonton and do really good in the provincial final. So anyways, this week, number 12 St. Francis defeated number 9 Notre Dame Pride. Both teams have like 4 or 5 CFC 100s on both teams. So it would have been a great game for a recruiter to go watch.
Unless the Calgary Dinos put a fence around the event.
Well, they
probably
certainly
did.
do around St. Francis, but
Yeah.
Notre Dame's become as much
Yeah.
of a Saskatchewan feeder as it has become a Calgary feeder in the last number of years. And I got to give full credit to the Notre Dame Pride because the last couple of years they've come out to the West Coast.
Yes.
They played against some of the top teams out here in BC as a preseason tune-up and really challenged themselves. I always appreciate when teams come out from Alberta and challenge themselves to play the different rules over here and as well as playing against the top competition. I can't imagine that wouldn't have benefited the Notre Dame Pride for a long, deep season. And, unfortunately, they came up against St. Francis for them. And but those are the 2 powerhouses. You add Western Canadians, sometimes really strong. Aberhart, sometimes really strong.
Yep.
But they're going up to Northern Alberta, I assume, play Ainley?
They'll go up, for your luck, you're going to get pushed up to play Ainley, and, well, good luck. But just to go back to the Notre Dame Pride, they had the middle linebacker that went down to Oklahoma State.
Eamon Ogbong.
Okay, they had the offensive tackle. Did Shane Richards play it? Yeah. So, there is not just Chuba?
Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard. Yeah. So he's not the only Albertan on that Oklahoma State football team. There's 2 for sure others. So.
By the way, Zach Papineau, I'm checking on the social media here. He points out that Dominic Johnson came out of Catholic Central. So I knew if I said something wrong, somebody would correct me.
I had the wrong player. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. So,
Should we just keep doing that then? Just throwing a bunch
Throw
of
it
wrong
out
stuff
there
there
and see what comes
catches us?
flying back at us.
Yeah.
Keep us honest, Canada.
Totally my mistake. Okay, moving along. We're going to move our way down. Not only was the Juvenile Bull d'Or went this weekend and was apparently one of the most exciting Juvenile Bull d'Ors in the last 10 years, which went into overtime and saw the Cinderella take down one of the perennial powers. But the CJIP Bull d'Or also went this weekend, and it was a team, Andre Grisset, who I thought was going to be there. They actually went into the game against a really sturdy Garneau defense and put up some insane numbers. So we're going to talk about the top two performers who I thought came off of Grisset. One is the quarterback, who's a CFC50. He's been a CFC60 for 2 or 3 years, Jonathan Senegal, who Gord seems to think is going to probably end up at Laval, sorry, Dan and Machocha. In that Bull d'Or game, Jonathan was 17 of 23 for 344 yards passing. He had 2 picks, and he also had 4 touchdowns. I know you guys like this kid. I know I've said, why doesn't he get a scholarship offer? And Gord seems to think that he's already booked his ticket to Laval.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily framed it that way, but you're watching this kid on film and he just looks like a Laval quarterback.
And there is a look for them. There's no question about that.
For sure. Very, very technically sound. Throws a great seam ball, throws really well on the run. I can't believe his accuracy on the move. It's really impressive. And the Laval offense loves to when they want to switch things up, they'll get their quarterback out of the pocket, have him throw on the run. He's not overly imposing. He's just a 6'1" guy, not necessarily your cut from the mold type guy, but that's Hugo Richard to a T too. It was very reminiscent of a number of Laval quarterbacks that we've seen in the past decade or so, just in terms of playing style. And that doesn't mean anything for his future, except that he's probably got that as an option at least.
Oh yeah, for sure.
3,116 yards passing.
Yeah.
In a season, 61 complete, 31 TDs.
I think last year was better.
Yeah.
He's probably...
He was higher on the list last year, but I would say that's also because you've got some really top-end guys in the CFC60 list right now. You've got the 2 Syracuse guys and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of talent coming out of those CJEP ranks this year. But, Senecal still, I think he was number 7 last I looked, and full value for that top quarterback on the list. So.
Well, I had one NCAA coach contact a while back and said, how far should I go down the list for the 60? And I was like...
60.
I was like, well, no, I was like, you need to push down to at least 25. There's at least the top 15. If I was in your position, I would have no problem doing my research and
the unfortunate thing for Senecal, though, not going to stick at quarterback at 6'1", 190 down south.
I hear you.
So if that's important to him, he's probably going to stay in the province of Quebec, I would think. But
great experience.
Yeah, and I don't think he's a pretty good athlete, but I don't think he's the type of guy that they want to take down there and switch to another position.
Nope.
So he's probably a guy that's ticketed for the RCQ, I think.
Yep, totally. The other player, I believe he's a first-year player, so he'd be a rookie in CJIP. He's not on the 60. But he's obviously put his name in the bullpen, as we call it, is DB Nathan Laflamme, played Team Quebec. He's a freshman. I believe he's a freshman. He's obviously Andre Grisset. He had 2 solos. Here's the impressive part. He had 3 INTs, and he had 2 pass breakups. So if you're in that kind of game and you create 3 turnovers on your own, that works for me. So.
Oh, does it?
No. So, anyways, so that was Nathan. Now, the part of the show where we say offer that guy, and I don't want to toot our own horns, but I'm going to. Safety / linebacker Enoch Maconzo, CFC60. Okay, he's down at NMMI, so that's New Mexico Military Institute. He was their leading tackler. Shortly thereafter, we said somebody needs to offer the young man, which he followed that up with an all-conference nod in that in that level of JUCO football, which is a big deal. So he got his first offer, which is Fort Lewis College, which is good for him. Hopefully that's the beginning of a couple other ones to come. And I'm just going to make note to, say, Delaware State. He's kind of buddies with all those other young men that you made an offer to. He may be even, one of the ringleaders. Maybe it's time for him to get an offer as well. And maybe you could get all 4 of those young men from Quebec, or 5 that you possibly might have now, to come and play for you, and they'll give you, who's the running back now at Delaware State, who's absolutely Chris Ike.
Ike, yeah.
I think you're going to get that.
Two 100-yard games for him so far, and they didn't start him until midway through the season. So
Yeah.
Can I ask you, how much is your commission from
yeah, is a check in the mail?
Because, man, are you pumping this guy's tires?
What,
Not
5%?
undeservedly so, but yeah.
5%, 10%?
Do you know, here's what I'm saying. You know when you
How
watch
do you
football
put a
players,
dime in the jar every time?
you watch football players, and you'll see kids every now and then who are hitters, right?
Yeah.
And then this kid, do you know that other category? He's a striker.
Yeah.
Like, he's a straight-up striker. I watched him play on their provincial team. I watched him through the Team Quebec program. Okay, he actually runs around, and the only thing holding him back is the fact that he's 5'10", 5'11". But I've watched him run around, and I've watched him, and he literally runs through people and has an absolute nose for the ball. That's all I'm saying. And he got his first offer, so that's good. Fast riser, or young buck of the week, as we call it, Alec Ao Manor from Medicine Hat High School. Grade 10, 6'3", 200 pounds. I watched him on film. Great returner. I think his first 6 clips were all touchdowns. He plays DB. He returns kicks, obviously. He plays receiver. When he played on the offensive side of the ball, dynamic playmaker, great in space. And he's a mismatch guy, so he can attack the ball in the air. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at his film.
I did not get a chance to look at that particular film, but send us a pronunciation guide if you get a chance as well, because I'm going to guess that that may not have been the way it's pronounced. But 6'3" in grade 10,
Yep.
and a guy that can move. I mean, you look like a giant amongst dwarves already at grade 10 with a couple more years left in you. That's always a good sign. And that southern Alberta area, like south of Calgary, southern Alberta area, seems to be picking up steam in terms of the quality of ball and the quality of prospects coming out of that area.
Yep.
I know we've seen a couple good prospects come out of Lethbridge recently.
Raymond's always been a motor and punched well beyond its weight.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot
All
of
the
that's got to
time.
do with the Ralphs, but
Yep.
there's more than just them coming out of that area.
Yeah.
Yep.
So nice to see one of those areas in the country that seems to be growing in terms of its amateur football ranks, and so it's nice to see some people coming out of those different areas.
Yeah, you know what? The fact that he got his film in, the fact we caught up with him again, and he followed us on Twitter, and you kind of get the ball rolling, and then you watch the film, you push out the name, you get a couple calls. That's how this whole thing is supposed to work. So kudos to, like he said, pronunciation, Alec Ao Manor. Sorry, bud. Okay. Moving along. All right, so we're going to kind of dive into our recruiting tips. It's not going to be much of a tip this week. It's more of a couple of suggestions. We're going to talk about, first and foremost, season ended. Have you updated your film? Have you updated your huddle if you use it? Have you updated the info that basically is on your huddle page or is on your YouTube page? Because what's coming down the pipe over the next few weeks, the next few months, is going to be the prospect game for the CFC 100, okay? And basically what they're looking for is for players to nominate themselves, for people to nominate players. So I want players to start updating the huddle, start updating your profile, start sending in your if you want to nominate yourself, because everything's going to be looked at. The only thing I'm going to say about that is make sure you do it with realistic expectations. We're actually going to be looking for like the top 70 to 80 football players from across Canada who are going to basically be selected through a series of camps and combines, and they are going to play in the TSN televised game. But you have to get your name in, and you have to get that nomination in, or somebody has to push it in for you. And it's only going to be really seriously viewed if all your info is up to date.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, just in general, cut together your highlight films. We talked last week about some of the pages we're seeing that are not updated. A good practice as you're going through your season is to go pull a couple clips aside every single game, so you don't have to make a huge project all at once when you're watching your game film anyway, which I hope you're watching your game film anyway. You just pull aside, flag a couple clips in huddle, and then you can piece it together pretty easily towards the end of the season. But the more up-to-date stuff you have out there that you can push, you can promote for yourself, the better for you. And it's only less than an hour's worth of work to cut together a whole season highlight reel that coaches will be all over. Get that stuff done. Do yourself the favor.
Another thing, 5 minutes or less. You don't have to turn this into a major motion picture. I think most coaches will watch about 3.5 minutes in, demonstrate a number of different skills, but 5 minutes or less.
Yep.
One other thing, just on top prospects things too, congratulations to all the young men who were being named to the Nissan Kickoff Project.
Yep.
Get to go to Grey Cup this weekend and enjoy themselves. I think they actually play a little game of sorts out there too, from what I understand. But that includes one of the kids I coached, actually, Caden McTaggart. But congratulations to all of them. I know there are a few CFC 100s on there. Jake Taylor was the name I saw on there, for example.
Tyson Kronishki.
Yeah, the Saskatchewan kid.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, congratulations to all of you who get your trip to Edmonton, or if you're Jake Taylor, get to stay at home.
I've got a request here from Tyler Deckers that we should talk about the CJFL.
Sure.
5 rings on one hand for those who participated with the Saskatoon Hilltops.
Yep.
They just wrapped up another one. They've got a competitive imbalance, I think, at Saskatoon and everybody else. Kind of like the way it was Laval and everybody else for a little while there in U Sports football.
Well, it was for a while.
They run a great program in Saskatoon.
They do.
It was for a while. The Regina Thunder were up there in the same conversation with them. I think they may have even snuck out of the Prairie Conference
they did.
a few years as well. And the Hilltops have kind of pulled away again. And what's unfortunate right now in the junior ranks, I think, is that there's a clear top league, the Prairie League. There's a clear second league, the BCFC, and then there's a clear third league, the Ontario Circuit. But every year, it seems the semifinal between the BCFC and the Ontario champion seems to be a pretty one-sided win for the BCFC, and then every year the final between usually the Hilltops, but the Prairie champion and the BCFC champion is pretty lopsided in favor of the Hilltops, and so that's one of the things I think kind of holding the junior ranks back right now.
One of the things that it's been very good at in terms of producing are quarterbacks, because we've got quarterbacks in this country that are late starters to the game.
Yep.
And to be able to go into a situation where you can go out there, you can get reps, you can get more exposure, has generated quarterbacks for the AUS and the OUA as well, not just Canada West. So if you want to get reps, if you want to dive in there, it's a great way to do it, especially if you're a late starter to the game.
It's such a thinking position too, and you have to see so many moving parts in front of you and get used to where the ball's got to go based on things, be able to recognize coverages because you've seen them before. It is, I would say, maybe more so than any other position in football, it's a position where reps are about the most important thing that you can have at that position, which is why we're seeing, you talk about the late bloomer thing, it's the experience of seeing what things look like in front of you and being able to identify, that's a cover 2 look, they're rolling into cut coverage, okay, I can throw the ball here. And so that's one of the reasons the CJFL has just done such a good job of developing that position.
And Tyler, I'll throw it out to him. He wants to point out the first 10-0 record in OFC history, Hamilton Hurricanes this past year. He's the defensive captain. He wants to take a bow. Take a bow, Tyler.
Bow, Ty.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Okay. So we could as we do this and we move into say next year through our first year here, we could tie in variations or certain points where we get a CJFL pump in there. So I mean, duly noted. Kind of diving back into where we were. I just want to make one more point about the prospect game that's going to take place. It's 70, possibly 80 players, so there's going to be 100s that don't even make it. So that's how competitive it's going to be. And it is for 2020. So the first class that's going to play in the prospect game is 2020s. All right,
So
it's
current
not
grade 10s, correct?
It would be those
current grade 11s. Sorry.
11s moving up. So that's the class. So if you're 19, you're too old, sorry. If you're 21, you may be considered if you're an absolute freak, okay? So it's 2020, understand that, all right? And 100s, there's going to be some that don't even make it. Okay, now moving down. The end of the high school season has come upon most of the country. As that comes, we're about 2 weeks away at CFC, okay, from starting to identify and name the All-Canadian teams, which we do every year. All right, there's the CFC10, which is the private school ranking. They will have a single team of All-Canadians, which we did last year. The CFC50, which is the list that covers all the public schools across Canada, will have a first team and a second team All-Canadian. This is something that we basically straight up evaluate the film. You don't have to be a 100. And we evaluate your stats, which are confirmed by your coach. And then that will get you on that. And trust me when I say the kids who make that list, there is a lot of attention given to pressing, pushing your name out, advocating on your behalf. A lot of the kids will either get a huge recruiting push at the end of their senior year from this, or the kids who have a year left or 2 years left will actually get a huge push towards getting put on the 100 list. So I would strongly encourage you to take the time to do your video. Put it in for the prospect game if you think you're good enough. Definitely, if you're an all-star or anything like that, or you have ridiculous stats from your high school league, you need to put your stats in for the All-Canadian. You may get a first team, you may get a second team. It's going to help recruiting no matter what, and all it's going to take is you putting in maybe a half a day of your time as you watch the Grey Cup this Sunday. That's my last point.
By the way, just on that note, hardest position to find for those types of things, typically offensive line.
Totally.
Correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, you're not stat driven, but if you think that you had an outstanding season as an offensive lineman, get your film put together. A lot of offensive linemen don't realize how good that they are because they don't get a lot of the accolades. You know, get your film together and push yourself, even if you're an offensive lineman and you can't say, oh, well, I got 15 touchdowns.
And the difference with offensive linemen in this context is that when we look for offensive linemen for the 60 and the 100, we're looking at 6'5" and 6'4".
Yes.
We're looking at the people who fit into the cookie cutter. When it comes to the All-Canadian teams, you could be that 6 foot, 300-pound road grader from Thunder Bay, Ontario, who devastated everybody. And then we're not going to look at 6 feet. We're going to look at the film and the film only. And we're going to look at the team's offensive stats. So I strongly encourage everybody who has an aspiration for that to get their stuff in.
We have a question here about if you go to school in the United States right now, do you qualify for this?
For that, no, it's CFC10, CFC50 only at this point.
Okay.
CFC10 would encompass the prep schools who are located in Canada, but the prospects who play out of Canada at prep schools down across, they are not eligible for this, but they are for the for the 100s. They all are. So you'll have to make the
They're
list.
also eligible for the prospect game as well.
Totally good. You can go the prospect game. That's going to be if you're looking at getting recruited down, or you're looking to get those offers, or wherever you want to get your offers from. If you play in the prospect game, if you make that 70 to 80 person cut, you are going to get some awesome coaching, and there's going to be all kinds of scouts there looking, and then you're going to play on TSN, and that's how you're going to get your name out. All right, so this will not be on our recruiting tip of the day. This was just us pushing out information to you because I want to evaluate as many kids as I can and find the best ones so we can do a good job of populating the prospect game, but also advocating on players' behalf. So thanks for joining us today, and this is the part where I turn it over to Gord or Jim normally, and he gets us out of here.
Well, considering someone who just appeared on here, I'm going to say go Buccaneers. And the other thing I'm going to point out is Crown Countdown U. It's available. You'll have to check online. Crown Countdown U available on Wednesdays on cbcsports.ca and over on CHCH TV on Thursday nights at 11:30. Don't you dare miss it.
Good luck, St. Francis.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.